Welcome back. Quite an interesting conversation we had earlier. We had some tweets that came in, but we couldn't take all of them, even though some were showing on the screen. But let me see if I can take one or two before we delve into the next topic. Alewa, Prince Nelly Alobari says, good governance is a moral street to be rode on by citizens from their homes to everywhere in the world. So it's not just those up there. Everyone can ride on that road called good governance. Ra Awaki says, I think we should tackle tribalism first because Nigeria is not one and values only function where there is trust. So that question of who's my brother, who's not my brother, we should think about Nigeria. Okay, then finally, Moses Tunde said, to get good governance in Nigeria, we must create equal opportunities for all and stop the elite from passing the baton to their children. As those a dynasty. Okay, now we're switching lanes. We're looking at the central bank issues with the central bank, as we put it, current CBN issues. Central bank has put aside, it said to put aside about 1 trillion naira to promote lending to the real sector of the economy with a view to stimulating economic activities in the country. The Apex Bank justified the massive intervention of the bank in financing the real sector of the economy, saying the current trend in global central banking has gone beyond the core functions of monetary policy management. Is that what we need now? I mean, when we have the naira sliding up and down against the dollar, is this what is needed? Would this indeed, 1 trillion naira, would it boost the economic activities, investment, FDIs, and all of that? Is that what is needed? Some people say it's political, but we're not the ones to answer that question, right?
We have guests in the studio
Two gentlemen
to help us look at
Two
this.
gentlemen in the studio. A financial analyst, Mr. Arinze Nwobu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And Tokwe Fashwa is an economist. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen. Let me begin with you, the analyst, Arinze. Is this what the central bank should be doing now? I mean, what else should they do in terms of providing the leadership needed in driving the economic activities in the country?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that the central bank is on the right course because if it's possible, you'll find out that policies are supposed to go even in concatenation, not one after the other. If it's possible for you to fire from all salvos, from all cylinders, all well and good, depending on the circumstances of the time. What CBN is doing is in line with global best practices because central banks across the world, UK, USA, France, and all whatnot, they engage in interventionist actions outside the traditional scope of the central bank. And this actually started not with Emefiele, but the point right now is that he's paying particular attention to the real sector, which you and I know have been so neglected in the past by those who are supposed to finance that sector. And I'm talking about the banks.
Okay. Now, Mr. Mobo,
Yeah.
it has set aside 1 trillion naira.
Yeah.
How exactly is this going to play out?
Yeah, I've been following programs of the central bank. They have evolved a couple of initiatives, like the youth entrepreneurship, program, and the commercial agricultural credit scheme, which focuses on certain agricultural produce that we have been massively importing.
Okay.
So they have come out with these innovative schemes where these monies will go into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I asked this question because my mind went back to the SME schemes.
That's right.
Where banks were required to put away, I think, 15% of their profit.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we heard that people really could not access the fund
Yeah.
because the terms were so stringent that SMEs, so putting that money aside, didn't really give much result.
Yeah, you see, a lot has been done about SMEs in this country, and they all resulted to fiascos because of those who are supposed to operate the schemes. And one thing about banks, like I always said, that banks cannot drive our economy, which is the reason we are also trying to promote the capital market. Banks are very conservative. Banks are practicing what I call shark attack practice, which they even did in the capital market, which partly resulted to the downturn. So, but now this is central bank with direct intervention and not through the banks. So the modus operandi
will be different. Let me bring you in. How do you weigh into this? Do you agree with what he submitted?
Yeah, maybe, perhaps in part. You know, as an economist, we talk about what the roles of central banks should be around the world, and I think it's generally agreed in intellectual circles that usually when you have a kind of recession or going into a depression, central banks will go into overdrive and begin to do, you know, some of the fiscal functions as well. However, it's not necessarily supposed to be permanent. So, you know, we've had a lot of intervention funds in CBN. There was aviation, Greek is still going on, real estate, I think, at some point, real sector perhaps, and so on and so forth. So let us just assume that this is a way of the central bank saying, look, we're not going to just sit around and be toying with interest rates and, you know, what have you, inflation and all that stuff, NPR, CRR, and so on. They will not just sit around and be toying with those ones, because many times it doesn't even dovetail. If you remember in the last MPC meeting, or is it the one before the last, the CBN actually said and noted that they realized that the banks don't take the cue from them the way they should. So if they move the NPR around, the banks drop their lending rates. No, they don't. In fact, if you look at the recent advertisements from central bank, you know, when they publish the average rates of the banks, you see that the banks are taking deposits around 5% now, right? And then
Sometimes
the lending rate is still
lower.
doing 28%,
Yeah,
30%.
but why is that so?
Okay,
Who's
so
going to borrow money at that kind of rate to set up an industry?
Exactly, that's the problem. Now, however, the point is that the banks themselves, we found ourselves in a crossroads, and the banks themselves, they are gasping for life right now. You know, so the banks are, and you see, you see a lot of people also complaining about the different kind of charges that the banks are taking from them. So the banks are gasping for life. I personally, well, I think the banks actually walked into a cul-de-sac, if you ask me. I don't support that the banks should give, you know, perform services for free. I believe the banks should survive and be strong.
And so
it's very important.
However,
they should kill the customer
okay.
and be declaring billions every year as profit.
You said that, I didn't.
I did. Yes.
All right.
But mind you, wait, Netta. No, you're not gonna cut me off.
I'm not cutting you.
No, what I'm saying is, no, mind you, no, get me very clear. I don't support that they should actually find life so tough. However, they themselves need to curb their excesses. You see, so, I mean, Mr. Arize mentioned the shark attack kind of thing and so on. They need to get their mindset off that largesse kind of thing. Look, I mean, in 2016, everybody is tightening their belts, you know, so you also need to tighten your belt. But if you want to keep living large the way you've always done, you're going to have this reaction from the public. In fact, sitting down waiting to come in here, some lady was talking so vociferously about the kind of charges, and she mentioned one thing, that it's possible there's a fraudster in that bank taking money from people's account. And I said, oh, that's also a possibility. Because, you know, every day now, a normal person sees 3 or 4 different charges coming from your bank. And sometimes you just say, well, they've just come again. But you're not sure whether it's a genuine charge or not. So that's where we are.
Permit me to interrupt this conversation. We need to get to Port Harcourt. Emmanuel Lewe, one of our correspondents, is on ground in Port Harcourt to bring us up to speed on the situation on ground. Emmanuel?
This is Ward 5, 6, and 7 in Falga local government area in Rivers East Senatorial District. The first thing you will notice when you walk into this vicinity is the huge presence of security personnel who have to take charge of any security challenge that may arise in this place. You have over 140 units in this particular Ward 5, 6, and 7. Materials are being sorted out to the different units, and the different voting centers in the Rivers East Senatorial District. You have 1,948 units on the Rivers East Senatorial District. It appears we're going to have a bit of a long day, and we'll keep you posted on the development of the events from the different parts of the state.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel.
Yes, indeed. Giving us updates on what's going on there. But let's come back. We're talking FDIs and charges on the banks. Now, Arinta, if the banks are, well, as Tokwe said, Alero said, strangulating the customers, shouldn't the CBN be looking at how to help the customers survive instead of putting on interventionist schemes that may not be accessed years down the line?
Thank you very much. You know, like I said earlier, you can execute two policies, you know, simultaneously. And I think that the central bank has really turned its searchlights on banks, particularly in terms of protecting customers these days.
How's that so?
It has?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Because there